Okay, so asset management. Um, so for an object to actually be drawn, it has to have a graphic object. Um, in order to have a graphics object, it needs to have a model, a shader, and a texture associated with that object. So what the user has to do is within resource loader, which is a user defined class, which belongs to the user defined method, which belongs to the main engine class. Um, the user has to load in all of their uh, re- all of their assets. Um, so they have to load in all their models, all their textures, all their shaders, their images, and also within resource loader they have to initialize their first scene. So that's what I'm doing right there. Um, so for all the loads, what it takes is a string which is a key which will be associated with that specific asset. So model access is associated with the Azul, the actual model object, which comes from, which is stored within the access Azul file. Um, so yeah, so actually opening up these managers, I'm gonna start with model manager. So model manager, as I mentioned, it has a load. It's a singleton first of all, um, but it has a load. It takes in a string that's supposed to be the key, and then a string which will be the path to the object, to the file for the object. Um, and then along with that, it also has a method which allows the user to grab the model according to it that's associated with the key. Um, so like right here. So the user is calling model manager get model plane, which this is doing is taking the model that is associated with the key and then placing it inside of here for the graphics object. So the actual C++ file. So load and load. Essentially, all I'm doing is I'm just checking to see if the key is already used within this manager, and if it's not, then I create the model using the given path, and then I'm just placing it inside of a map which is stored inside of the manager right here. And then forget passing in a string. All I'm doing is checking to see if the model, if the key has an associated model. If it does, then pass that, just like there. Um, Also, since this is a class that the user will be able to have access to, however, I don't want to give them full access. I had to create an attorney uh, so that the main engine class can access private um, methods within this class, such as the terminate. I think the only thing it has is the terminate, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So the main engine class, when it's unloading all of the assets, it's able to call terminate. However, uh, this is because I have an attorney set up on it, only the main engine class can call terminate through the attorney, but the user on the user side they can't call terminate. Um, so yeah, that's model manager and its eternity, texture manager, all pretty much all the asset managers, they look pretty much the same. Um, Let me pull up the H file. So this is texture manager. Same thing. It has a map for which stores string key associated with a texture. Um, the user has to load in the resources. I already mentioned that in resource loader. Um, they can also get the given texture using get. And texture manager, the C++ file. Um, Same thing, checking to see if it's already in use. If not, put it in, make the texture and put it inside of the map. For get, make sure that the key exists. If so, pass it in. Then terminate, just iterate through and delete all of the models, all of the assets. And then, yeah. So that's texture manager. Same thing, texture manager has an attorney, so that key we can call terminate, but users cannot call terminate. So that's texture manager. Shader manager, nothing terribly new. Has a map storing all of the shaders with a string key. Load in the shaders, assign it to a key, assign it a, no, blah. Get it using the associated key. Yeah, this is shaders. That's a lot of... Same thing. And then, still resource loader. Then image manager. Image manager is specifically for like sprites and stuff. So flat images to be processed by the orthographic camera during rendering, to be passed to the orthographic camera during rendering. But I'll talk more about that later. So only real difference is instead of passing in a... So the actual images are passed in as textures, and then during load, all that's happening is you're taking the texture that's going to be the flat image is just assigned to a key, and then it's stored as an image. Where is sprite? Yeah. So I grabbed the texture from the texture manager and then use that to create the image. And then get's not that different than the other ones. And then I'm getting rid of all the images, just like in my terminate, just like all the other asset managers. And then this is my attorney. Same thing. I just have terminate stored. I'm just putting terminate inside the attorney so that Kiwi can call it, but the users cannot. Okay, so that is essentially asset management. What else can I throw in here? Oh, and central time. So for time, yes, okay. So within my update, I'm processing my time through my time manager. So within my time manager, where is it? Time management. time manager, I'm keeping track of um, my previous time, my current time, and frame time, which is just the time in between each frame. Um, the reason I'm keeping track of my previous time and current time is because I have time freezing set up on my engine. If I freeze time, I have to keep track of my current time along with the time when my engine was not being processed. So looking inside here. So yeah, when I actually process time within the main engine loop, the main update loop, I'm just doing a small calculation to essentially get my current time while taking into account the amount of time the game was spent frozen. So yeah. Some freeze time. Freeze time is basically a system which is responsible for, well, freezing time. But yeah. So yeah, that's more or less a time manager. Yeah, all it's supposed to do is keep track of the current time while taking into account the time that was spent frozen. And yeah, that's it.